Hi, this is my review of Objects of Intrigue, Dungeon, Random Encounter Tables. This is a deck and a booklet because it is available as either a deck or a PDF booklet where you can determine all sorts of things related to monoliths, strange objects, items, structures. There are many things that you can encounter inside a dungeon environment. You can purchase this deck in the Nord Games website or in DriveThruRPG. However, I recommend that you check out the Nord website first because it is available in various formats there. And when you make your purchases in the Nord Games website, you obtain Nord points that you can use in future purchases. Now let's talk about the quality of the PDF of the booklet. The quality, I do have a criticism. This document is not hyperlinked. It's not like the Wandering Monsters decks, and if you haven't seen my review of those awesome decks to generate random encounters, please check out the playlist in the description below. But in this case, you cannot click on the entries that you obtain after rolling the dice, so that is disappointing. However, it's only 17 pages long, so it's not going to be too difficult to move your way around the document. The cover looks great. It really feels immersive, like it pulls you into a sort of dungeon environment or adventure. The graphic design looks great as well. It kind of has like that magical book sort of feel to it. Everything is well organized and written, and the instructions are well explained as well. So overall, the quality is good. It could have been better because of the lack of hyperlinks, but in general it's good. Now let's talk about the contents. So you make rolls to get to subtables featuring objects, perhaps even corpses, items, structures that are related to a specific dungeon environment that you are moving through. So this can be used as a sort of tool to design environments and encounters first, or to improvise the game as you play along. You can also make rolls whenever you like. Sometimes you may decide to choose the right element for a particular adventure or encounter, and I think it's a great idea to combine these results with the Wandering Monsters deck's results that I have reviewed. But in comparison, the Objects of Intrigue feel a lot like adventure seeds. You could use them as the start of a campaign, or as a major or critical element within an existing plotline. You can obtain all sorts of results. Some of them could be positive, could help the party in some way. Some other results are negative. They could end up inflicting some sort of damage or curse or status that affects the party negatively. But you also have some results that are more flavorful, more thematic, that could be further developed for the story or the background of a particular dungeon. This deck can be used with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but it's very easy to adapt it to any edition of Dungeons & Dragons, any pseudo-clone, retro-clone, any fantasy role-playing game in general, just by making a few modifications or tweaks. Now let's talk about some of the results that you can obtain in these tables. Maybe you obtain the result of warm fire pits. A pile of burned wood and ash lies on the floor. The smell of smoke lingers around what looks to be an impromptu fire pit. The burned out remains radiate diminishing heat. Closer investigation reveals multiple sets of footprints in the ash heading off away from the site. Or perhaps scuff marks from boots that hastily kicked dirt over the flames. The air is eerily still. Maybe you obtain some other result, like orb cocoon. A fist-sized, irregularly shaped webbed sphere hangs from the ceiling by a single strand of silk. It slowly rotates back and forth. Looking closer, you can see a small slash in the cocoon, and a faint glimmer catches your eye. Cutting the ball down and looking inside of it reveals a small tiger's eye gem worth 100 gold pieces. Or perhaps a set of fine leather bracers, slightly rumpled from being bundled so tightly. They could be bracers of archery. Maybe there is some sort of other cocoon, like the pulsating cocoon. A pulsating sack coated with webs, slime, and ichor is stuck to the floor. The stench is overwhelming as you approach, and your eyes begin to water from the fumes. The sack jerks a few times, then stops as you watch. Investigating it causes it to explode in a 10-foot radius, dealing 3d12 of poison damage to anyone in the area. you need to make a dexterity save to protect yourself. Or maybe this pulsating cocoon prompts two face spiders to shift into view and attack. Maybe you obtain the result of glass cage. A small glass cage sits on a stone pedestal, its bars glinting brightly in the light. A golden pomegranate rests within. The cage has no openings, but it looks extremely fragile. Breaking the cage allows retrieval of the pomegranate, but the pomegranate could vanish in a cloud of dust. Inhaling the dust causes 1 level of exhaustion. You need to make a constitution save. Or perhaps the breaker is knocked unconscious, and you need to make a constitution save. Maybe you obtain the result of slain adventurer. The putrid smell of death leads you to the corpse of an unfortunate humanoid, deformed by rot. The corpse has been here for 1d4 weeks and has nothing of value. If the corpse is disturbed, a swarm of parasitic creatures burst forth. Or perhaps the corpse suddenly reanimates and attacks. Maybe you obtain the result of Angelic Shrine. A beautifully decorated shrine depicting several angels with wings outstretched dominates the scene. A fine script is engraved along its base. The shrine bears an inscription in Celestial, which bestows a blessing to the reader for 1 hour. Maybe it reads, "My flesh is a stone." You obtain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Maybe the blessing reads, "I am divine," giving you resistance to all damage types. Maybe you encounter a granite altar. A finely crafted granite altar stands sturdy, cold, and silent. Its edges bear no mark of chisel, pick, or hammer, and its top is smooth and level. A non-magical weapon placed on the altar becomes magical for the next hour, as well as gaining, perhaps, +1 to attack, +2 to damage, or perhaps +4 to attack, +8 to damage. Another thing that I really like of this PDF is that you have many notes giving you tips and advice on how to use different things. So for example, they tell you, pedestals are often the focal point of a room and typically display items of great power and/or value. All too often, they are protected by traps, guards, or monsters, or depending on the item, a combination of all three. Another tip in these notes is, consider how long it has been since an object has been interacted with. A thick layer of dust allows the opportunity for clues, such as where an object has more recently been used or touched. Maybe you obtain the result of Sacrificial Altar. An altar fashioned from several dozen humanoid skulls stands waist high. The large stone slab on top is splattered with droplets of dried blood, a chilling reminder of the wicked deeds that some are driven to. If approached by a good-aligned creature, the shrine resurrects an undead or group of undead with a challenge rating comparable to the party's level. Or perhaps an undead or group of undead with a challenge rating significantly greater than the party's level. You could also obtain the result of Bullseye Lantern. An exquisitely carved stone pillar rises up from the floor. On top of the pillar, on an eye-shaped plinth, rests a large, rather plain-looking bullseye lantern, which appears to be mounted in a rotating frame. The lantern can be lit once per day and spun, randomly granting the bearer, perhaps, dark vision for 24 hours, or perhaps the effects of an aid spell. Maybe you obtain the result of Bone Lantern. A lantern has been haphazardly constructed with random bones. An upside-down skull stares at you, with a wick protruding from its upper jaw. The crude lantern now sits cold and dark. The bones belong to a long-dead wizard. Anyone who lights the lantern is cursed with sunlight sensitivity, or perhaps blindness in one eye. The creature has a disadvantage on ranged attacks. Maybe you obtain the result of Stinking Mattress. A mass of mildewed hay, rags, and rodent skins form a primitive mattress. The bed seems to have been created by some foul creature, which has thankfully left, though its odor lingers. Any creature who investigates the bed must make a Constitution saving throw or contract Sewer Plague, or maybe Cackle Fever. Maybe you get the result of Hidden Pool. The air is damp and cool here. A small puddle has formed in a depression of the floor, and the water's reflections dance and flicker on the walls. Beneath the surface of the puddle, you can find a dagger bearing a royal crest on the hilt, or maybe a locket containing a letter proclaiming undying devotion, presumably from the figure depicted in the crude portrait. And these are just a few of the many results that you can obtain related to a dungeon environment with this booklet or deck. So what do I think of the Objects of Intrigue dungeon random encounter tables? You should definitely get this, either as a deck or as a PDF. This is so thematic, but it also contains those mechanical elements concerning saving throws. This Objects of Intrigue deck and booklet reminds me of those old school board games or role-playing games, like for example Advanced Hero Quest. With those tables, you need to roll on to determine the results when you enter a special or specific room. I definitely recommend that you do not use these Objects of Intrigue results too much, because all of the different objects, structures and features are quite impactful, quite powerful in their effects on the game, either negatively or positively, or by just presenting some sort of hint or clue as to what is going on within the dungeon. The results are quite special. They are also very useful to start an entire adventure or even a campaign, and to further spice up or mix things up with an existing plotline. However, if you want to use these results a bit more often, without robbing these objects of their special quality, of their uniqueness, you could also use these tables as inspiration and come up with your own results, creating your own tables beforehand using these elements as inspiration, like I said, or examples, or maybe modifying the results in an improvisational way, depending on the encounter, on the site, on the adventure, by modifying the mechanical and thematical elements right away. And I think it's also worth considering if you want to get this as a physical deck or as a PDF or as both, because the deck contains 212 possible outcomes, while the booklet contains 200 possible outcomes, but also those extra notes and suggestions that are not found on the physical deck. So it could be worth getting both. There's actually, let me check the option real quick. Yes, there is a physical deck and book style PDF bundle in NordGame's website, so definitely consider getting both. I think it's going to be very useful, but if you are thinking of getting it just as a single thing in a single format, get it as a physical deck if you want more outcomes, or get it as a PDF style if you want some tips and advice on how to create encounters, dungeons and such. I also think that the results work great as both improvisational elements or as tools to build the adventure before the game starts. The results are great for any sort of playing style, and this is also an amazing tool for solo and co-op gameplay without a game master, using your favorite game master emulator, tables and oracles. These Objects of Intrigue are going to bring many surprises to the table when you don't know what is going to happen when you enter a room, what is going to be in that room. Just pick or roll any of these results according to the method that you are using to run your solo or co-op game, and then based on the results of the subtables, you're going to have to deal with the outcome. So perhaps you encounter an altar, you don't know what that altar is. First you decide you want to interact with it in some way, and then you make the roll and you need to suffer the consequences if they are negative, or enjoy the benefits if it's a sort of blessing or a magical bonus. But it could also be something that reveals or expands or further develops the plotline of your solo and co-op game. So my highest recommendation for the Objects of Intrigue deck, specifically this dungeon featured deck. I'm going to be reviewing the other decks, so I hope you will watch those reviews as well. Well, thanks for watching this review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending Drive-Thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.